On today's episode, we're going to talk about what so many Bulls fans are talking about. What can the Bulls do at the trade deadline? There's an interesting article written by Elias Schuster that talks about the top 5 targets potentially for the Chicago Bulls. Zion, AD, Michael Porter Jr., Zubac is amongst those. We'll talk a little bit about that. Injury updates, the Pistons matchup, and the uncomfortable reality that the Chicago Bulls might do nothing. We're going to get into it all and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. Y'all, I want to talk about this article by Elias Schuster. He talks about 5 potential high-risk, high-reward trades for the Chicago Bulls, and I want to go through each one of these players, and we're going to talk about it. Break it all down. You guys know how we do it here. With that said, let's start off with it, right? The first one that he mentions is Zion Williamson. And I can't think of anybody who more pictures the high risk, high reward potential, of course, that's there for the Chicago Bulls in a potential trade for somebody like Zion. Now, I've mixed no words in regards to it. I don't think a Zion trade makes sense for the Bulls unless you're getting him solely for expiring contracts. We'll talk about the deal that Elias Schuster presents in his article, which kind of gets you most of the way there, and I'm actually not mad at the deal. But I think with Zion, it just comes down to that potential is always there for Zion. I mean, in the numbers this season have actually been great when Zion's been on the basketball court. The problem and the risk with Zion always is how healthy is Zion going to be, and how much do you want to bet on that? Now, if you're the Bulls and you're giving up expiring contracts to get him, and maybe a future first, right, or a couple of future firsts that are kicked out or have some level of protections on them, then okay, maybe it's worth doing it then. And I get it. Some Bulls fans are completely starved just to say that they have a star on their hands, that they're willing to sell the farm just to say that they have a star, and then not think about the fact of, all right, what do you have around that star so you're actually more successful? I hate to tell a lot of you guys is that, like, the era of stars just attracting free agents is kind of gone anyway, but let's even say that the Bulls can get that, right? But having a star, we've seen it. It doesn't guarantee you anything. The Bulls could trade Josh Giddey, Coby, and get a singular star back and still be in the play-in every single year. And then what have you done there? So I'm just saying that I'm just in the mindset that just getting a star alone does not really do much for you. You have to then be able to either still have the team around that star or then go out and get those pieces that then that star can actually do something for you. So I just have a little bit of a different mindset than some Bulls fans. That, like, for example, Pat the Designer. Like, my co-host over on Locked on Bulls, he just wants a star on the team. It doesn't matter what you have to give up. He just wants a star, where I'm more so in the thought process of, okay, what do you still have around that star? Because that star alone, we are outside the era, really, of stars alone being able to push you even to being a playoff winning team. It can maybe get you to the playoffs, but winning, it takes more than that, right? You look at what Giannis has done in his career. He's definitely a star in this league, right? So I just I'm somebody who's more kind of thoughtful on, okay, now what's left around that player, or what assets do you have left around that player to then go out and get something. And with Zion having to opt out every single year, you can get out the deal, but it's like, okay, what do you give up in that point? Which brings us to the presented trade. It's fake trade. It's not the rumor, but this is the trade that Elias Schuster has in this. Is Nikola Vučević, Kevin Huerter, and a 2027 first-round pick. Now, in this year, not giving up your 2026 pick, which is a deep draft, and we'll see where the Bulls' pick lies in that. You are giving up 2 expiring contracts of players that may not be part of your long-term future. That's perfectly fine, too, right? Like, I love Kevin Huerter on this team, and I think Kevin Huerter has definitely stepped up in a lot of places for this team in his role this season, in the blocks and the steals and the on-ball defense, all that type of stuff. But if it comes down to you think your team's make or break because of Kevin Huerter, then your team's in a pretty bad place. And Vooch, at this point, Vooch is matching salary. I'm not mad at any trade. So this is not necessarily a trade that I hate. It's not a trade that I think is necessarily going to get done, because I think there are going to be teams willing to give, even if picks are the focus of the Pelicans, there are going to be teams that are willing to give up better picks I would say, than the Bulls can, but I'm not necessarily mad at that trade. The next player that he has on here as a high-risk, high-reward trade for the Bulls is Anthony Davis. Now, depending on how you view, we talked about Anthony Davis early in the season. There are a lot of different views on Anthony Davis. I come down to it that, stylistically, he's probably exactly what you want as a big. Now, he doesn't like to play the center, but he's a defensive big. He can be a two-way player when he's healthy. There's just no doubt when Anthony Davis is healthy, Anthony Davis is one of the best basketball players in the world. That's it. He is one of the best when he's healthy. The unfortunate part about it is that he's not usually healthy, right? You can't even bet on him. He's getting paid $50 million. You could barely bet on him to play 50 games. That's the problem with Anthony Davis. And it's you have to pay him. He's going to want a contract extension, so you wouldn't even have like the out that you would have with Zion Williamson as far as opting out of that deal each summer of the 2 years, I think, that are remaining on his contract. But there's no doubt about it. Anthony Davis is one of the most skilled and best two-way players in the game of basketball when he's healthy, averaging 20 points per game, 10.8 rebounds, almost 3 assists, almost 2 blocks per game. But what's said in that, he's only appeared in 18 games this season. Right now, he's played in 12 of the last 16, so maybe that's a sign that he's going to be more healthy over the course of the season. And having Anthony Davis in a pick and roll with Josh Giddey or even Coby White, if you're able to hold on to him, moving Modest Buzelis to the 3, then you have shot blockings in your 3 and 4. Noah Essingay could probably be your up-and-comer at that point in time to play between those two players. It's all of that, right? And Anthony Davis does solve one of the Bulls' biggest, or two of the Bulls' biggest problems. A more active pick-and-roll defender and rim protection. But it's just the risk of what Anthony Davis is. Now, in this article, what Elias Schuster has presented for him is the Bulls get Anthony Davis and Jaden Hardy, so they're getting another potential scoring, potential guard there. For Coby White, Kevin Huerter, Nikola Vučević, and the Portland first-round pick. So the Bulls aren't even giving up their own first-round pick. Why would the Mavericks do this? Well, I mean, expiring. All the contracts you're getting back in Coby White, Kevin Huerter, and Nikola Vučević are all expiring, and you may very well want to re-sign Coby, but if you are going a more young direction built around Cooper Flagg, it gives you a season to see how Coby can play around Coop, and then you can let him go if you don't need to, or sign and trade, or wherever else you are getting the first-round pick back. But this is the closest thing to a sell low for Anthony Davis that I've seen. Now, we've heard that not a lot of teams, because of the contract size, are going to be interested in Anthony Davis, so maybe that's just something they're going to have to. The Bulls taking back Jaden Hardy's $6 million contract as well. It continues to give the Dallas Mavericks some wiggle room if cap flexibility is what they're kind of focused on now, building around Coop as they get young players and stack the deck there. Again, not a trade that I necessarily hate per se, but it's not a trade that I love either, and it's just because of the injury risk of Anthony Davis. And I know some people are going to say, well, Kobe's injury prone. Kobe's played in even playing, I think, 4 less seasons than Anthony Davis. He's had more 70-game seasons played, especially over the last 4 years. So, there you go on that one. But, we just got to see what's going to happen. The Anthony Davis to Chicago Bulls allure, I get it. There are a lot of Bulls fans that absolutely love the concept of Anthony Davis coming to their team. I guess I'm kind of more weary on it than some others. But, hey, it is what it is. It's you getting a star for my Bulls fans that like stars. All right, well, we all like stars, but that are star hungry for the team. All right, next up, he has Michael Porter Jr. on here. Now, we've talked a lot about Michael Porter Jr. over the last couple of days because of rumors that have popped up. I view Michael Porter as a player that he can contribute to winning. He did it with Denver. He played a part into it. But the thing that I fight back against is people who think that on a winning team, he's going to put up the numbers he's putting up now in Brooklyn. He's not going to do that because unless you make him your number one, but then in that case, you've already seen what a Michael Porter Jr. number one ran team looks like. Now, there's, of course, some tanking in there because they're the Nets and they're going to be tanking for a while, but I just don't trust that Michael Porter Jr. would be that level of player if you just throw him in as a number one consistently. I don't think he's going to be putting up the points that he's putting up, all that type of stuff. I think he can play off. Maybe he can be a 3, but I just don't necessarily see that. He is only 28 years old. He doesn't turn 28 until after the season. Like Michael Porter Jr. is still a young player, but he's $40 million contract. It's and it's very similar to Zach LaVine. Like it's right back in the same mode that you had Zach LaVine for, and he's even more injured than that, right? So he's, but I guess, when you're looking at Michael Porter Jr., he has played 77 games in the past 2 seasons. So maybe some of the injury concern isn't as bad as what it used to be, but I'm just looking at that. I'm still a little bit iffy on that overall. But the trade that Elias Schuster has presented here is that the Bulls get Michael Porter Jr. and Haywood Highsmith in exchange for Ayo Dosunmu, Nikola Vučević, Zach Collins, and a 2028 first-round pick. I don't like that trade at all. You're giving up one of our best big men. You're not replacing it with another big man. Ayo Dosunmu was only one of our few two-way players. You're giving that up for an offensive-focused player. This is probably the trade that I like least here for what he presented. The player, I just talked about that. But the trade, I don't really like that trade at all for the Bulls. I think it helps the Nets more. But then into the player that I actually like so much in here, and that is the Bulls getting Zubac here. This is the last player on this list. And this trade isn't necessarily terrible, right? It's going to be some. I can't wait to see your guys' reactions to it is where I leave there. We already know what Zubac is as a player. He is a productive two-way big that can do a lot of stuff for you, especially defensively. And what Zubac has turned into, a lot of people didn't see him turning into that at this stage of his career. But Zubac is a really good big. And if the Los Angeles Clippers ever decide and say, hey, we got to start moving off this, we just got to reset the deck. We have this old roster that's really not going to do much. Kawhi Leonard is great when he plays, but how often is he going to be healthy? James Harden is James Harden. But when you look at Zubac, 15 points, 11 rebounds on 60% shooting from the field. He's a legit 7-footer. This guy also, when you look at it, over a block per game as well. He's averaged over a block per game each of the last 5 or 6 years as well. He's typically pretty damn durable also. With that way more games played of 70 or more. Matter of fact, he's only played less than 70 games once since 2019, and that was 68 games played in the 2023-24 season. I like the concept of getting Zubac in here to the Chicago Bulls. I think he brings a lot of what you need at that position. But let's talk about the deal that Elias Schuster has presented out here for that. And I want to hear from you guys on all of these to see how you guys feel about these deals overall. But they have the Bulls getting Zubac and taking on Chris Paul. Many people will remember Chris Paul is still technically on the Clippers roster for Nikola Vučević, a 2027 first-round pick and a 2029 first-round pick. Now, I love Zubac, and he's 28 years old, around the same age, about a year and a half younger than what Nikola Vučević was when we traded for him. The question is that the problem that I have is that we gave up 2 first-round picks for Vooch, and I just am a little weary about a center that's 28 already. Centers do kind of die off fast when they get past a certain age. You're giving up 2 first-round picks. That the Vooch part, I'm not mad at. 1 first-round pick, I'm not mad at all. The one alteration I would make to this is make the 2029 pick lottery protect, because that's far enough out to where we don't really know what Zubac's going to be at that point in time. This Bulls experiment, you may need to reset your roster again at this point in time if things don't work. So I'd make that pick lottery protected. But I don't hate the trade overall. I do think it's going to take a first to get Zubac. But with you taking the Chris Paul contract back too, you should be able to come off with one less first-round pick just by taking the Chris Paul contract. So that's what I like. Zubac is a really good center. I think you still would need to find your center of the future, but he's a good right-now option. In this trade, you're keeping both Zach Collins and Jalen Smith, which maintains your double big lineup ability. I don't necessarily hate that. He brings a lot of what the Bulls need as far as on-ball defense, pick-and-roll defense. While he's not the kind of 2-block-per-game shot blocker, but I do like the concept of having Zubac on here. And then the contract isn't necessarily terrible for Zubac either, right? So, yeah, you're getting Zubac back, and you're able to try to, factor in some things financially with it. But I love the concept of Zubac on this team. I think that he is a really good center for what we need on this team, and he can really help the Chicago Bulls in a lot of those areas. I just don't know if the Clippers are at the point yet where they are willing to give up Zubac. He's only on an $18 million contract. That is so reasonable that, hey, listen, you're getting off Vooch. I'm not mad at taking 1 year of Chris Paul to take on that deal either. You get 2 more years of Zubac on contract after this season at $19 and $20 million. It's not a bad deal. It's not a bad deal. Like I said, I'd add protection to that second first-round pick, though. But let me know what you guys think on that article from Elias Schuster. I'll link it down below. What do you think about the presented trades? Let me know that down below. But I want to talk about the next thing. Why the Bulls are unlikely to do anything at the trade deadline, or I'll say this, nothing major at the trade deadline. And I still think that this team is still holding on to that flexibility of 2026. Now, I do think that there are some players that are worth cutting into a little bit of your space because you'll just have them and they're the caliber of player you would want to sign anyway. But I still think that I still don't trust AK to not be stubborn in this. And even with the Vooch, even with P. Will, even with, other things, the thing that I think may happen more than anything is that you may see some of the role players that we've fallen in love with, those players be the ones to get moved. And I know it's not the right players to move, but if AK truly is in a place of being a seller, and if you're seller, that means you want value back. You're not just, dumping things off. We've heard Trey Jones, Jalen Smith now. We've heard those rumors. We talked about that yesterday, how the Bulls are now open and moving Jalen Smith. Again, according to Evan Sideri, take that for what you will. But it just raises that concern. And I think that those are the level of deals. You may see a Herter, a Trey Jones, a Jalen Smith move. You're probably not going to see a Vooch, a P. Will, a Coby White, or Ayo Dosunmu move. And I know that's kind of counterintuitive to what we've heard a lot in rumors and things like that, but I just still don't trust the stubbornness of Arturas Karnisovas, and I think that that's going to be something that leaves him in a place of not really making a lot of deals. So that's still my thought process. I don't think the Bulls are going to be making a lot of moves. I don't think that a lot of things are going to change for the Bulls at this trade deadline, other than maybe moving some veterans that we are some role players that we've fallen in love with, and stacking some solid assets. I mean, I think that that's not a bad thing to stack yourself with future assets either for veteran role players that aren't really, they're part of your core now, but they're replaceable. So, we'll see what happens there. But I just want to temper the expectations for a big move for the Bulls. I just don't think a really big move is coming. But hey, if I'm wrong on that, I'm wrong on that. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. We do have a game today, and we have got an injury update. So Modest Buzelis and Coby White are both listed as questionable for this game against the Detroit Pistons. And we'll see what happens. There's no doubt about Coby with the hamstring, and especially with this game being the first of a back-to-back. We already know he's not playing in one of those games, so if he doesn't play in this one, it makes sense if they want to get him some additional rest, right? So we'll see what happens with Coby if he ends up playing in this game or the next one, but he's probably not playing in both. Now, Modest Buzelis was also listed as questionable on the injury report because he's listed as having an illness, which you do know something made its way through the team a little while. Modest over the last 5 games is averaging almost 20 points per game on really efficient shooting from the field. Not necessarily efficient shooting from the three-point line, but he's been efficient overall. The Bulls are 17-19. They're 2 games below 500. And the question then becomes about in this game against the Pistons, can they handle the Pistons backcourt? That's the question that you have here. The Pistons have a triple threat at backcourt as well, and that's something that you have to look out for. Cade Cunningham, is somebody who's been just so great for this team. Then you got Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, Tobias Harris. Like, the depth of that team is something that's going to give the Chicago Bulls a lot of fits, right? So if Coby White and Modest Buzelis do not suit up in this game, man, it is going to be a tough game for the Chicago Bulls team against this Pistons team that is right now the best team in the Eastern Conference. This is a Pistons team that has worked its way so far up from where it was just a few years ago when they were a team that won, 13 games, something like that. You look at them now, 27-9 on the season. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They have the best record in the Eastern Conference and lead the next team below them, the Boston Celtics, by 3.5 games. That's where they are right now. And this is a team that in the Pistons that you cannot take lightly. You just can't. Now, I know that the Bulls have beaten the Pistons before, and that's great to say, but that was when the Bulls were kind of at full strength. And one thing that we know about this team while we're not playing at full strength is that we need to lock in as a team to get things done, and we have to do it as a team through the team concept of basketball. But for what it's worth, on the season, the Detroit Pistons are the second best defense in the game of basketball. They're the 9th best offense. They have the 4th best net rating in all of basketball, the 2nd best rebounding percentage, the 2nd best offensive rebounding percentage. These are all areas where the Chicago Bulls struggle at, right? They don't turn the ball over. They're 3rd in steals also when it comes down to that, and they're 3rd in free throw rate. This is a game. Oh, and by the way, they're the number 1 blocking percentage team in the NBA as well. This team is so sound on both sides of the ball that you can just, if you aren't coming in prepared to play damn near perfect basketball, you are going to get your ass kicked. And that's what's going to happen if the Bulls don't come into this one prepared. Now, for what it's worth, the Detroit Pistons are beatable, and we've seen it. And the way that you can do it is staying active on both sides of the ball, and that's going to have to be a thing in the Bulls for every one of these games down the stretch of this season. You have to maintain your activity. You have to maintain your effort levels. If you don't do that, regardless of who's out there on the court, you're not going to win no way. And that's where the Bulls find themselves behind the 8 ball so often, is that effort piece or settling for bad 3-point shots. That is what this Detroit team is going to try to get you to do, is settle for those bad 3-point shots. The Bulls cannot stop moving without the ball. They can't stop attacking the paint, and they have to play smart in this game on the defensive side of the ball. They are drawing fouls at a crazy rate right now, and so you have to be prepared for that. If this Detroit Pistons teams get to the free throw line 15 to 20 times, and that is something that could happen in this game, it's going to play into the Pistons' hands. They just are so methodical on both sides of the ball that the Bulls have to be ready for this one. So regardless of who plays, if Coby and Giannis are also out, add that to Jalen and Zach Collins being out, yeah, that's going to put the Bulls behind the 8 ball for sure. But this team has to come in here and you have to fight, you have to claw, you have to scratch, you have to get that done. And if you don't, man, it's going to be a problem for you. The Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham pick and roll has become one of the most dangerous combinations in the game of basketball. And if you aren't prepared for that, I don't even know what to tell you. So we'll see what what the Bulls and how they've prepared for this game. I think you're going to see very early on if the game plan for this Bulls team is working. You're going to see that very early on. And the adjustments that AK can make. This Pistons team is going to adjust. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They are going to adjust. And how the Bulls prepare for that, that's going to be the thing that we have to see in this one, man. So we shall see this game. I'm excited for it. And see what the Bulls can do with it. This is the first game of a back-to-back. Let's see what the Bulls have in store for us. But that's it for today. Trade dreams, injury realities, and another test for this team's identity. If you enjoyed today's episode, guys, make sure you guys have hit that like button. You can subscribe to the channel as well. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform that we happen to be on. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you ready if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.